morning.
and welcome.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So let's first begin with just a little prayer. My favorite Bible verse. Dear Lord, let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be accepted in thy sight, O Lord, my strength and my redeemer. I love you, Lord, for your mercy never fails me. All my days I've been held in your hands. From the moment I wake up until I lay my head, I will sing of the goodness of God. For all my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so good. With every breath that I'm able, I will always sing of the goodness of God. That is my mantra, has been my mantra for a while now. My name is Ann Alston. Thank you, Reverend Room, for the opportunity. So, ladies, first of all, I want to say that I'm glad to be at the well. And I like to tell you all that we are more alike than we are different. I'm a woman of faith, and I've been a woman of faith for the majority of my life. I was raised in a Baptist household where my father was a minister. And I can tell you that my story is not any different from your stories. I read a book a few years ago by Robin Roberts that was entitled, Everybody's Got Something. In that book, there was a quote that she quoted. She said, find the meaning behind whatever it is that you're going through, because everybody's got something. So I just want to remind you all that everyone has something. Hopefully, I'm going to share something that I've been through. I'll say my story, my testimony. You can call it whatever you want to, but I'm just sharing it with you. Hopefully, it's going to encourage some woman this morning. And I will remind you that God has a purpose and plan for what's going on in our lives. I have a story that begins back in April of 2021. And during the midst of COVID, I don't remember anything particularly different that happened that day. As I look back and I say to myself, you know how some people say, oh, I can see what God was doing, or it wasn't me. I missed something that day. I was not paying attention because I don't remember. This came out of nowhere. It was just any ordinary day. I retired back in 2017. Life was good. I was living my best life. Then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, around 11 o'clock on one Saturday night, I noticed that my husband was not in bed. So I got up and I thought he fell asleep on the couch watching TV. So I went in the family room and I woke him up, and nothing unusual. Went back in the bedroom with him to come to bed. And shortly thereafter, he came up the hall and I noticed he was limping. And I said, why are you dragging your feet? And he said, he's okay. His leg was just asleep. And he was going to lie down and he would be coming back to bed soon. I gave him a few minutes. I went to check on him. And at this time, I was real concerned because he almost fell. I called my son and he came over. We took my husband to the ER. And immediately they took him back in bed. And I'm just fast forward a few hours. They airlifted him to UNC. He had a stroke. My husband remained in 3 different hospitals for 65 days. It was a long and sometimes difficult pill to swallow. But how many of you all know that God has a purpose in everything he does? I worked in corporate America for 30 years. And one day I was told that my job was being eliminated. I could either apply for another job in the company or take a service package. I decided at that time I would take the service package and retire. But I had no idea that God was preparing me for something I had no idea was going on. Suddenly, I went from a wife to a caregiver. I bathed my husband. I helped him get out of bed. I take notes during his doctor's appointments. I log his symptoms. I refill his prescriptions. I knew that I want to take care of him. After all, he's been my husband for 37 years. And I took my vow seriously. I made sure he goes out every day. And you all forgive me because I'm getting choked up. He goes out every day and he socializes with his family and friends. I try to keep a positive attitude, and it's always helpful. The fact his illness was not my burden to bear. I had to learn that through God's mercy. I learned I had to begin the process of understanding I need to take care of myself. And then I began to listen to my own emotions. I gave myself room to feel what I was feeling. I learned I was a better caregiver when I'm not trying to solve all of my husband's problems. husband's recovery has been slower, but I stay positive. He's beginning to show some signs of walking again. I believe that he will be walking soon. So as you can see, I share my devotion because everybody's got something. Good news is that God is in the midst of it all. The story of Esther in the Bible has always been one of my favorites. I love the story in the Bible because it tells how God can use anyone for his plans and how we, especially women, can fight our fears and bring glory to God. God used Esther to carry out his plan, a plan that he ordained before she was ever born. When Esther was reminded that she had been made queen for such a time as this, she knew that her strength had to come from God. Sisters, when you feel weak, when life struggles seem overwhelming, you feel like you can't do it, give it to God and let him do it for you. Let him fight your battles. And remember that God has a purpose for our lives. God's timing is perfect. And I struggle with this myself. When I see that something needs to be done, I try to jump in. That's not always the best course of action, as you all probably know. However, sometimes I do need to wait on God and I've learned I have to wait on God and not step in front of what God is trying to do. When I act out too soon, I always mess it up. And instead, I've learned to wait on God to reveal his perfect timing. We, like Esther, have choices to make. We may have not had much power and influence as Esther, but God has still placed us where he wants us to be for such a time as this. We're not going through any situation by accident. We must pay attention to what's happening around us and see God's direction and how he wants to use us. God has given each of us an opportunity to share his plan. To miss the kingdom assignment because we're too caught up in our own personal lives would be a great tragedy. One day I'm gonna tell you a story about this young lady. One day a young lady was driving along with her father. They came upon a storm and the young lady asked her father, "What should I do?" He said, "Keep driving." Cars began to pull over to the side. The storm was getting worse. And when she started to panic, she said, "Father, what should I do?" He said, keep driving. He told her just to keep driving. And he said, keep driving up only a few feet. On a few feet, she knows that there were 18 wheelers were also pulling over. She told her dad, "I must pull over. I can barely see ahead. It's terrible and everyone's pulling over." Her father said, "Don't give up, just keep driving." Now the storm was terrible and she never stopped driving. And soon she could see a little more clearly. After a couple miles, she was again on dry land and the sun came out. Her father said, "Now you can pull over and get out." She said, "But why now?" He said, "When you get out, look back at all the people that gave up and are still in the storm because you never give up. The storm is now until it's over." Ladies, somebody's watching us, and sometimes what we do does not seem to be a big deal, but God is using us for his purpose and his plan. In life, you're going through a storm, coming out of a storm. How you handle it is totally up to you. We need to continue to do the work that God has planned for us without complaining. We need to support each other and encourage each other to share our stories. Who needs to hear your story? It's time to be silent. Is it a time to be silent or a time to speak? I believe that God has prepared us for a time as this. Thank you, and God bless you. Thank you.